Okay, so I'm just going to take a small break and see where all of us are. Like Vedika, is it clear? I mean, I understand this
Yeah.
can be very heavy and information overload of sorts. That's why we record, and like I will share the document as well if that helps. Um, Arna, Amruta, are we all cool? Is there something is it becoming like very complex because of which you're not participating at all? You're leaving it to a later time. Don't do that. Bad decision. Oh, okay, no response. I don't quite know what to make of it. But
No, like
yeah,
everything is clear.
all right. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Cool. Let's go back to what we were doing then. Uh, yes, likelihood. Now, what was likelihood? After we have done all three of those things and like seen how it would pan out when we through a motion, likelihood is about, okay, so according to likelihood of something happening, you win a debate. If I want to say that celebration, this is me discussing the same side, okay, and we are still opposition. Celebration will lead to coming out. How can I sell this argument? I can sell this by proving its likelihood, proving the likelihood of that happening through celebration. How will I prove the likelihood then? Through an analysis. I will say people are apprehensive about coming out because the LGBTQ movement is always in conflict with the rest of the society or the government at large. So this like discourages the people from being open about their preferences, right? Which is why we want to seem more amicable as the movement in order for people to have that space to come out, right? So if we as the LGBTQ movement would go around celebrating, what will the people think of us? The heterosexual people who wouldn't listen to what the LGBTQ movement is, etc., etc. They will start lending us their ears because they understand now that we are not like anti-social elements. We are also capable of like coming together, celebrating within our community without causing ruckus. We are thereby undoing a stereotype which like penetrates the society at the moment. Arna, I'll address your question now.
My question was that while we're saying that this party will celebrate LGBTQ, it will help them come out into a more safe environment. How is this party any different from all the other parties that are there and haven't made much of a difference until now? How can we say that we're different?
Okay, again, go back to your characterization. The question is relevant, but any question that you have might have towards your own case, you have to put a clarification in the characterization to quell that question. What does that mean? If you're saying that, oh, LGBTQ movement is only one social movement, there are so many other movements. For example, the feminism movement, or the feminist movement, I'm sorry, or the Marxist movement, right? The communist movement. Why is it then that we should only think about the LGBTQ movement? Simply because one, this motion is about LGBT. So even if there are other social movements happening, we don't really care about them. But if you want to clarify that this movement has, I mean, so in my speech, when I was debating on this motion recently at a tournament, what I ended up doing is that I said that look, LGBTQ movement is very, very young as compared to other social movements. For example, feminism has already also existed for some years now, but LGBTQ is just absolutely new. It's only a few years old at best, which means it has way less resources. It's not as big, which means they cannot pick political battles at this time because they don't have the kind of support that bigger social movements have, which is why it's all the more relevant for them to not clash with the political figures because parties are powerful and they will easily like shout them down, which is why they should through celebration work on expanding their reach at the moment and making the movement bigger. Does that make sense, Arna?
Yes, ma'am, it does. It does actually.
Okay, to others, does that make sense? So even if you want to bring about other comparisons with other social movements, you can do it to your advantage, right? You could say that the LGBTQ movement is small, so even the feminist movement can raise political, like a voice for political rights. LGBTQ movement cannot, because there are a lot of women in support of feminist movement, but a lot of the LGBTQ movement people are not okay with joining pride parades without fear because of how small it is, right? Cool. So about,
Just one more thing. Can I
yeah,
please?
yeah.
So here you said that celebration will lead to coming out. So you are saying this from the POV of the prosecution or the POV of the opposition.
Opposition.
Okay, celebration will lead to coming out. So this is a negative thing for the this is a negative thing ultimately.
So
As
all the
celebration,
arguments we are running at the moment are from opposition, because
okay,
once
I
we
get,
pick,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
we can't keep changing stances because it's based on the characterization which we've already done from
Okay,
the opposition side.
sorry, my bad.
No, that's okay. Okay, back to likelihood. You understand how I prove likelihood here. This might not be the best way to do it because it's a very impromptu way of forming an argument, which is not how things are supposed to be. But you understand, right? I say that, look, first I give an assertion, and the assertion is this: celebration will lead to coming out. But why people might say that, oh no, political pride parades will help in coming out better because now the government is being clashed with, and the LGBTQ movement, people think that, oh, LGBTQ movement is eventually getting strong, like after all getting stronger, that they have the agency to like clash with big parties. So we have to prove that coming out is more likely through celebration and less likely through politics. That's what the win depends on, which is why likelihood is important. Whenever you're saying that something will beget something, that a certain cause will lead to a certain consequence, you also have to prove the likelihood of that happening, because 1,000 causes could lead to the same consequence. Why is the cause that you are pursuing then is the most important? Do you understand the like idea of likelihood now? Yes, Zaina.
So a likelihood, like proving likelihood, is essentially putting forth a strong mechanization.
Sure, yes, an
Okay.
analysis. But also another thing which is called weighing. For example, if I am saying that, look, coming out is facilitated by celebration, I can't just say, oh, celebration needs to come out and then keep repeating the same thing. I also have, while I'm explaining why celebration leads to come out through creating less hostile circumstances, making people more like appreciative of the LGBTQ movement, I also have to, on the parallel, say that politics will make coming out less likely. So I'm doing two things. One, I am proving that celebration leads to better coming out possibility. But second, I am saying that politics does exactly the opposite. So I'm deconstructing the case on one hand and pursuing my own at the same, in the same way. Do you understand?
Yeah, so it's about showing that the benefits are unique to your side of the house only.
Yes, exactly
Oh,
that. And that what they are trying to do will only undo those benefits.
right. Got it.
Cool. So that's about likelihood.
And
Any given, yeah.
so likelihood is just like cementing the incentive that you prefer, like that you want to bring to limelight,
Likelihood is cementing the incentive that you prefer.
that you want to show to the while you do.
Yeah, so here the incentive, no, so the likelihood is about causes and consequences. There is a
Okay,
cause
yes,
you will, so, okay, in any given debate, there is an end goal, right? Mostly that end goal is to make a better society by the end of the debate.
yes.
Whoever proves that a better society will come about in their side through the causes that they are pursuing is going to win the debate. Which means in this particular motion, what is the common aspiration for both government and opposition?
What?
What is the common end goal that both government and opposition seek in this debate?
So just to make the LGBTQ movement, um,
Think about
Gain more
it.
traction, maybe, or to generally better their position in society.
Right, right. I think Zaina is right. Yes. You just want to
yes,
make
yes,
their life better in general,
yes.
however that can happen. Now you want to pick a way of doing that. The proper, so the point of commonality is the end goal. Both government and opposition want to reach the same end goal. The means are different. The likelihood of proving the betterment, like betterment through a certain means as compared to the others, is what the debate, I mean, is what determines the win. Does that make sense now?
Yes.
Okay, so likelihood is showing a common pathway. Sorry, two different pathway that leads to a common pathway.
Yeah, so wait, let me just put it here also so that when I share the document, it's there with you. Likelihood, first of all, you have to understand there's a common end goal. So the debate is about the means and which is better. Whoever proves
So likelihood is basically about the betterment of the people we are talking about in our debate.
yeah, the likelihood means that proving the likelihood is contingent on you proving the worth and the might of your means. For example, if celebration is your means, you have to justify that celebration is going to lead to a better life for the LGBTQ community. That's likelihood.
Okay, so reaching the common end goal through your independent ways and proving why your independent way is superior than the opposition's independent way.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that understanding works for now. When we mock, I mean, it'll become clearer when you get feedback from adjudicators. We will mock soon, so this should be clear later also. Okay, so this is about likelihood. Now let's come to weighing, which is another important part of a case line. So weighing is just basically when all the cases have been presented, or like most of the cases have been presented by most of the sides, OG, OO, CG, CO. Weighing happens in like the later speeches, which means that weighing is just me comparing my case to the other sides. So why is this important? Until and unless I compare my case to the other sides, the adjudicators will not be able to tell what the clash points are. What are clash points then and why are they important? Clash points are just basically some common grounds based on which the debate is happening. For example, one clash point could be the importance of coming out. So government is saying that coming out happens better on our side. Opposition is saying that coming out happens better on our side. But the clash is particularly about coming out. There is a common idea that you're discussing. So that's why it becomes a clash in the debate. Now there are various clashes that will transpire in a good debate, and the adjudicators judge who gets the debate based on these clashes. For example, if I am able to prove better coming out agency on our side, my side of the house, I will take that clash. But if opposition, like if government is able to prove that there is better, let's say, traction on their side, then they will take the traction clash. Do you understand clashes now?
Yes.
Cool. Now, when a lot of clashes happen, sometimes the adjudicators have to fill in the gaps because you don't do it for them, which is where weighing becomes important. I have to, I don't want to specify which speech, but basically it's the work of the whip speech. The whip speeches are particularly known for identifying clashes and giving a biased verdict wherein they are winning. So, no, in a whip speech or in a speech where you're trying to weigh the two sides, you can't just keep saying, oh, this is what we said, this is what we said, that's why we win. You have to go ahead and say that this is what we said, this is what they said to the same point. We think their points fall short for so and so reasons. We think our points still stand tall for so and so reasons. Please give this debate to us. Clash closed. Open another clash. Same process. We think this is what we said on this clash. This is what they said on this clash. We still think that we were better given so and so reasons. That is what weighing looks like. Do you guys understand?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so just weighing up the worst case scenario on the worst case.
Yeah, worst best case I'm going to come to in just like in the next point, but this is just basically comparing. Weighing in the simplest way, enunciation of it is comparison between the two cases and which is better, which happens through the identification of clashes. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, okay.
Okay. So now on to like the best case and the worst case and what they are. Cool. So coming back to the same motion, because this is what I recently debated on, so I remember. If you look at this motion, what the government side was running in this particular debate is that the LGBTQ movement should not celebrate through pride parades, but rather give up like further their political agenda. Because when they try to be political, they will be in the news more because they are clashing with the biggest party in the country or the ruling party, yada yada, which gives them more media attention. And through more media attention, they will get more traction. Do you guys understand this argument?
Yes.
They said then that if traction is required by LGBTQ movement because it's a small movement, the best way of getting this traction is by becoming political. That's what they said. The only problem with their case, because of which they lost, was that they were only working on their best case. This is their best case, where they fight with the government and they get traction and they go back to being the same old movement they used to be. What do you think is the worst case to this? Raise your hands. Yug. Nishka.
Yes. So the worst case in this scenario might be that the government, instead of supporting them, starts repressing them instead.
Perfect. Yes, that's the worst case. The worst case scenario is that this government is too strong and the LGBTQ movement is too small, which means that the government might even have a stranglehold over the media, right? As simple as that. I mean, democracies don't function in the garden, like it's in a pre-lapsarian world, and we are no Garden of Eden, which means that even democracies can have like manipulated media, yada yada, which means that distraction is not assured. But in the quest to get this traction, the LGBTQ movement will be hurt irrevocably, which means that the party can inflict so much harm that it can never come undone because of how the big the party they clashed with was. Do you guys understand now what the
Yes.
worst case is? Okay. So best if you run if you only think about your best case, that oh we are proposing something, there is 1% likelihood of what we are saying happening, so we should take this debate. You never will, because just saying that oh fighting with the government will give you media attention is just you talking about the best of the best situation that can happen to you. But why wouldn't you consider what is the worst thing that can happen to you through this proposition, which is where best and worst become important. If I'm proposing something, I should also think about what the downside could be to what I'm saying. Do you guys understand? This might be a bit tricky. Even I got like understood this very late in my debating trajectory.
Okay, so do we have to address the worst case, or what should we do with the
You
worst
should.
case?
You should address your worst case before the other side does, because see the other side is definitely going to talk about how you are trying to win on your best case. So don't do it in the first place. How I deal with it then is that I start the case prep keeping in mind the worst case. Do you understand? That way I am prepared for the worst. Best case gets sorted on its own when you start working on your worst case.
But so if you already address a worst case, then the position will know where we are vulnerable.
No, they won't, right? Because you already have a comeback to that. So listen, worst case doesn't mean that you can't support yourself in that situation at all. It's just that you have to be prepared to argue even in favor. See, sometimes you have to say that even in a worst case, we are better than the other side. And as long as you're able to prove that, you will take the debate. For example, in this case, their best case is that they will clash with the government and they will get media attention, and then the movement will get big. Their worst case, like Nishka said, is that the government will absolutely crack down on them, right? In this case, what Zaina, do you have something to say before I move on?
I was just going to clarify. So, is the worst case analysis done only by the whip speaker, or can any speaker do that?
No, any speaker can do this. And you know what? This is implicit also. Even if you don't mention what your best and worst case is, you just don't want to like hype, like run your best case like the majority of your case shouldn't be on the basis of your best assumptions. That's what I'm saying. So if you keep saying that, oh, so this is what this government side in this particular debate did, right? They kept saying that, oh, clashing with parties will give you media attention, and then this is how you're going to win. Had they moderated this argument, had they said that, look, media attention is likely in our worst case, but even in our worst case, we understand that media attention might not be there because media can be manipulated. In that case, we still think that they will have the support of the people because the government is seen to be cruel now. So when the government is acting cruelly on people who are peacefully protesting, people will stand against the government, and that's how you build support. Do you understand? This is for you. So even in my first case, I have an alternative. It's just that I have to be prepared with an answer for it.
Okay, so the worst case here will be that the government will not support my preferences, or instead they will go against it. But
Yeah,
our second option is that the media or the people in our support will go against the government.
yeah, yes. Because how
Okay,
does
yeah.
hostility work, right? Like if right now I am just going ahead and saying that, oh, the government is bad, government won't do anything for us. If the LGBTQ movement says that, nobody will believe them because they're too occupied with like their own peace and they don't care about somebody else just because they're not a part of that community. But at a point in time where the government is actively trying to crack down on a movement which is actively politically protesting, then the people will be out on the roads, because they will see that the government can then suppress anybody. Today is the LGBTQ movement, tomorrow it will be us, right? In which
Yes,
case
yes.
it's easy for LGBTQ movement to gain traction even when there is no media support. So I
So
am
we
dealing
just
with
have
my
to
worst
present
case
a
as
key.
well.
Basically, you have to present a worst case scenario and then show a protection from it.
Precisely that, yes.
Yes.
You have to be prepared with responses to situations, even in the worst case. This is what I'm
Okay,
saying.
okay. I get that.
And I just gave you an example, right? It's just about
Yes.
racking your brains.
I just saw that how can we win the case on the basis of a worst case scenario?
No, you can. Worst case is not
Yeah.
like the end of the world. You can still
Yes.
find arguments on it.
Yes.
Cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So the next thing now, which is of importance here, is impacting. Now, impacting is also a bit tricky to understand. Whenever I make an argument, this argument has to have some impacts, which means that if I'm talking of something negative from the other side, I want to ensure that the harms are panned out. Which means if I'm saying that, look, political protestation can be really bad for the LGBTQ movement, the impacting will come in layers. How does that happen? I will say that, look, first of all, LGBTQ movement will lose any political support that they were capable of getting through negotiations. That's my first impact, where I'm trying to draw a linkage between my analysis of why political protestation is bad to something that is going to happen on a ground level. So this is first impact, where you lose out on your ability to negotiate and the bargaining chip. The second impact could be that if I clash with the political powers, then I make it difficult for people to come out. That's the second impact, right? The third impact could be that the people of the country will respond negatively to me as the LGBTQ movement if I clash with the government directly, because in developing countries, by the virtue of our characterization, people are also not receptive of homosexuality, which means that I should first make people believe that I am worthy of their positive appraisal through celebrating through community spirit, etc., etc. These are three layers of impact. So you understand impact now. So if I think there are some benefits, I have to delineate every benefit that can come out of what I'm saying, right? Which is where stakeholders become important. First, I talk about how celebration will help the general public in understanding me as a movement. Second, I talk about how the government will now not be able to catch us or crack down on us because we are not being political in the first place. The third stakeholder I talk about are the people from my own community who want to come out, which is why I am ensuring through impacting that I am able to benefit all the stakeholders on my side of the house. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Cool. Analysis of existing arguments is also important, but this is like very basic given that you have understood weighing, impacting, which were like the more complex things. Analysis is just basically what the deputy speech does. I mean, I'm going to come to what different speeches are supposed to do in the debate, but analysis is just basically one argument having been presented by your partner and you having to extend on that. One is that can't just go ahead and contradict yourself, and it happens quite a lot. So your partner has said, for example,
Ma'am,
yeah,
I'm really sorry to interrupt, but I actually have to leave right now. So
yeah,
I'll watch the recording later.
I was anticipating. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so whoever has to leave for another class because we're running over time, you can.
Thank you so much.
Whoever can stick around, please do, because I'd like to wrap this up if I can. Okay, so analysis of existing arguments is just basically one claim having been made by your first speaker and your responsibility being to analyze it better. Analysis definitely includes sensible weighing, it includes impacting, it includes stakeholder analysis. So whatever we've done here in the first half of our session, all of it can become a very reasonable part of your analysis. How you choose to analyze arguments is just a process that will be unique to you, but these are the elements you have to incorporate in order to ensure that it's like holistic analysis of an argument, right? Now, certain caveats or words of some pieces of advice for you when you are analyzing stuff in speeches is this: do not contradict your own self, right? And this happens mostly through actor incentives getting changed. For example, I say that, look, feminist movement does not have enough resources in my characterization. Perhaps my first speaker says that, and then I forget that we said that. And then in the second speech, we end up saying that no, feminist movement has the ability to topple governments. I mean, trust me, this happens. We forget what we said about a particular actor in the first speech, and then we end up contradicting our own self according and change the incentive of the actor in the first place. Ensure that that does not happen. Okay. So if you look at the example here, uh, you say that the access to digital paraphernalia, which is like laptops, computer, etc., is less in the developing countries. But when you want to revert to an argument, maybe you just go ahead and change it to saying that, oh, everybody has access to internet. Now you can't say both the things from the same side, right? Because either you say that look, people have laptops and mobiles, so internet access is easy, or you say that internet access is not easy because people don't have phones and mobiles. You can't say in your first speech that look, people do not have access to phones and mobiles, yet in your second speech for some reason you say that internet access is still enough. That's contradiction. Do you understand? So you have to be wary of these contradictions. These do come up more than you'd want them to. Worst case, I've already explained. You can read it through when I share the document, but there's nothing new in here. Cool. Rebuttals we'll cover in a different session, very long. Now, this is how I'd like to wrap it up. I'm glad we came to this portion of the document. Cool. So now everything is explained to you. Everything, I mean, all of the words and terms here are like understood by you all. Now it's just about you understanding who is supposed to do what in the debate. So if there's two people in a team, of course, you're going to divide the work, and that division of labor will happen according to this table, or like this entire catalog of what each speaker is supposed to do. So the prime minister is supposed to do the framing. Now you might ask me what framing is, because I haven't, explained framing. So I put it in brackets. In short, framing is characterization of terms plus status quo plus actor analysis, or let me just call it stakeholder analysis, just so we're not confused. Is that understood? Characterization plus status quo plus stakeholder analysis, everything has to come in the PM speech, followed by introduction of the arguments that you might have. Impacting, etc., will come in the other speeches. Impacting is not prime minister's responsibility or the leader of opposition's responsibility. Introduce the arguments. And of course, then if you want to preempt is just basically assume what the other side might say and respond to it. For example, preemption could also be a worst case. Say that, okay, in a worst case, we understand the opposition might say that this and this will happen, but we have a response to that as well. Do you guys understand the first speaker role responsibilities?
Yes.
Yes.
Cool. Now, if you look at the LO speech, it's very similar to the PM speech. You do almost the same things as you do in the PM, except that they have a speech to rebut, which means that the LO will have a speech to rebut, and which might that speech be? The PM's. PM is the first speaker in the debate, so they don't have anything to rebut. But the LO will have the PM speech to rebut. So you can start rebutting from the LO speech onwards, right? And then you can also counter characterize. So if characterization of terms happens in PM, what is the LO supposed to do? LO can either agree to that characterization, say that, okay, their understanding of developing countries is also our understanding of developing countries, so we're good there. Or you can go ahead and say that we don't agree with this aspect of their understanding of developing countries. Is that understood?
Yes.
Yes, no, what are you saying? Okay,
Yes.
cool. Then on to the deputy speeches. Yeah, on to the deputy speeches. The deputy speeches, like I said, will always be responsible for the analysis and the extensions. Whatever arguments already exist and have been presented by your first speaker, your role will be to completely flesh them out and make the adjudicators buy them. So this includes 2-3 things. Analysis can be based on the what's, the whys, and hows of an argument. For example, what is the argument my first speaker made? Why did they make this argument? As in, what is the relevance of this argument in this debate? And how do we win this case given that this argument is ours and it stands? Right? That could be a way of analyzing arguments. And you have to also alongside rebuild your argument. What does this mean? If you are the deputy speaker, if you are DPM, for example, the PM speech has, the LO speech has happened before you. The LO speech has definitely tried to undo your PM speech, which means that you have to restore the credibility of your PM speech in your arguments. How does that happen? This happens mainly through weighing. Okay, panel, this is what my first speaker said. This is what the LO said in response to my first speaker's speech. But I think our argument still stands because of so and so reasons, and thereby our argument is rebuilt. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. DLO, again, exactly the same.
So may I please?
Yes.
So the main role of DPM and DLO is to put weightage on PM and LO's speeches.
Right, yes. And also engaging with the opposition speeches through weighing
Okay.
in order to rewind. Okay, so this portion of, I mean, all of this is opening half, if you remember. Cool. So opening government and opening opposition, they debate in this order, and then the opening half is over. After which begins your closing half. So this closing half has CG, member of government. Their responsibility, the major responsibility on members, which means the first speaker from the closing benches, is extensions. What are extensions? The new arguments that only you bring to the table that your first bench did not. What is the first bench for CG? What is their first bench?
Sorry,
For
can you repeat?
CG, which is the side which is also on their side and has already gone before them.
OG, ma'am, the opening government.
Yeah, yes, right. So OG, you want to give your extensions. Extensions basically mean the arguments that are exclusively your own, which haven't been run by OG. Okay. So this has to be made clear at the very outset. How do you make it clear? Panel OG said this. We think we take this debate over them because we will also tell you this beside what OG said. This is how you go about doing the extensions. Then you talk about the problems in the opening half of the debate. For example, where did O go wrong? Where did OG go wrong? Because of which we take over both the houses, the benches. And then you go ahead and engage with O, because that is the opposition side that has already delivered their speeches before your speech started. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a lot of homework that you guys will have to do, given that MGMO, all of this you might have forgotten since orientation. So if you didn't revise in between, you'll be lost. Please don't let that happen to you. LSE is a fancy affair. You paid for it. You want to make the best out of it. Okay, important call. Okay, let's just wrap this up first. MO has exactly the same responsibilities of extensions, dealing with CG, because CG is already gone before them, and OG, which means that member of opposition, closing opposition, has heard everybody's speeches in the house, which means they are supposed to start rebutting every side which is opposing them, but also establish why they are taking over their opening half, which is the opening opposition. Okay. Whip, be it the government whip or the opposition whip, both of them are responsible for weighing. As in, so the only role that the whip plays is that of, say, first analyze. So if I'm the government whip, I'm CG, I will first give reasons for why CG takes it over OG. Then I will talk about why CG takes it over OO. Then I will talk about why CG takes it over CO. That's all the whip is supposed to do. And all of this happens through weighing. Opposition whip does exactly the same, except that they are saying why CO takes it over OG, why CO takes it over OO, why CO takes it over CG. Does that make sense?
All clear.
Perfect. I think this was a very intense session, given that there's a lot that got covered. So please watch the recording if anything might have been unclear. Also, thank you for sticking around even though we're going over time. I appreciate that. So if there are no other questions, I think we can have another session. So
I just wanted to ask, the next class is on Saturday, right?
the next class, just I know the date, it's 12th. It's on 12th. Is it Saturday? Yeah. Saturday.
Yeah.
Perfect. Anything else?
Just thank you for the session.
Oh, you're welcome, Lana. Okay. If there are no other questions, I won't take any of much or like any.
Okay, thank you. I'll leave then. I leave then. Thank you for the session.
Okay, you're welcome, guys. Have a good evening. Bye.
No questions, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.